You're listening to Content Logistics, a podcast for B2B marketers looking to build a content engine that drives revenue. In each episode, Camille Trent interviews the marketers behind the best content marketing flywheels and uncovers the tactical aspects of content production, from first draft to first customer.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Content Logistics. I'm your host, Camille Trent, and this episode's brought to you by Tristan and Justin over at Motion. Motion is a full-stack podcasting agency for busy B2B tech marketers who are looking to launch a podcast or level up their existing podcast and need help on the technical side, need help with the production or the distribution of that podcast. They'll even help with the strategy and how to set up your questions, how to run a good show. So if you are wanting to start a podcast but are just unsure how to get started, hit them up and they will help you out. Today, our guest is Nick Bennett. He is the Director of Customer Marketing and Evangelism over at Alyce, and also Jay Desai, who is the Head of Marketing at Captivate Talent. I'm bringing them on today to talk about the logistics of using social proof and gathering social proof to level up your content. Jay, Nick, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Excited to chat.
Yeah, so a little backstory for everyone. We all met like a year or two ago. Jay was starting a new product and we were all kind of in this group, which was a lot of fun. It was like one of the first Slack groups that I really enjoyed. So the ultimate marketing community. So if anyone has a need for like community, Jay is like the guy to hit up, but that is not what we were talking about today. We were talking about social proof and reviews. And for some backstory, Jay invested in reviews like early on in his days at Trend, and Nick's recently moved into a customer marketing facing role. And so you get to learn from his real-time learnings at Alyce. So that's what we're digging into here. But before we do, let's talk about the why. Why would we even care about social proof for content to begin with? And why should you invest in reviews as a strategy in your marketing campaign? So a couple things from my end are the obvious. There's the evaluation stage, right? When I'm evaluating products, I want to see that other people have used the platform. I want to know that I'm not alone in buying this product, right? So I need a little bit of proof. And so using social proof on landing pages, using them on your website, also knowing that people are going to G2, not even going to going to G2 and comparing you against some of your competitors, feature comparing. So knowing that's part of the process, you want to stack reviews on certain sites that you know people are looking at, and then you also want to be able to use them in your marketing. So those are some obvious things that I see on the content end. But Jay, let me kick it over to you of why was reviews something that you focused on at Trend? And if you can give a little background on what type of company Trend was in the situation.
Yeah, so I'll start with a little bit more about Trend as well. So we were, the product still exists as an influencer marketing platform, basically connecting creators to brands. It's more focused for direct-to-consumer companies. So think for creators, think like your Instagram creators, TikTok, YouTube, those kinds of things. So that's what we worked on over there. And reviews was huge for us because we were just starting out. I think a month after I left, they were able to raise a pretty significant round of funding. But before that, we hadn't really raised anything significant. We raised a little bit, but not anything significant. And so when you're having to be really scrappy and figure out a way to drive traffic, drive social proof, all of those things, reviews are something that's really just obvious to do. You have you have customers using your product. And so it's great to kind of amplify their voice. And just like you said, I go out and I'm talking with my friends, my colleagues, hey, are you using this product? What products are you using? And things like that. And social proof just speaks a lot more than if you just try and plug your own product. It feels like that grimy salesperson that's just talking about themselves the whole time, or that person that you talk to at a bar that's just talking about themselves the whole time. And so that social proof is it's something that's existed for a long time. You've always had wing person or something like that in other settings. And that's what I see reviews as. It's that social proof that can really help to kind of hammer home that message and also figure out what resonates with other customers. Because, people use products for different things. And so they're going to talk about different features and different benefits.
Nice. And yeah, similar question for you, Nick. Like what I'm curious about is, so you were more in the field marketing space, and Alyce clearly had a need for customer marketing and wanting to focus on G2 reviews as part of that. So tell me about that sort of transition and why it's important for Alyce right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because like reviews have always been important to us, but up until like there was a gap where there was really no one on the marketing team that was focused on like the retention side of the business. Everyone was focused on acquisition. And it's like, all right, listen, we're entering a down market right now. What can we do to really focus? And so my boss came to me and said, hey, I know you're a traditional field marketer, ABM marketer, but like, would you be cool jumping to the retention side just to help out? I said, yeah, absolutely. Like, I understand the needs of the business. And so the first thing that I said was, all right, great. Like we already pay for G2. We understand it. Like it's just what we use. And I said, all right, let's focus on like what we can do to drive reviews. And so I went to our team and I said, all right, like we already do NPS surveys. So let's just basically pull everyone that is doing NPS surveys, send them a very segmented email from me that was more personalized. I'm a friendly person, or at least I like to think so. And just see if like people will again, like, leave a review in exchange for a gift. Am I incentivizing them? Absolutely. Am I incentivizing them for positive feedback? No, I'm incentivizing them for feedback at the end of the day.
Yeah. And one thing they didn't even mention in there, but I think is important is that you guys are a gifting platform, right? And so you're also using the product within your marketing, right? So it's like this nice flywheel effect of how you're able to use the product to ask for the review and just create this nice little cycle. So I'll dig in more to that specific playbook. This is a nice way to transition back to Jay of you had an interesting playbook at Trend where you use the product as well. So if you can tell listeners just about how you were able to use product credits as part of your review strategy.
Yeah, so we had actually switched to a pricing model, I think about like 7 months before we really just hammered down on reviews, which was more of like a pay-per-use model versus like your traditional MRR model. And so we actually built that into our review process. So the way that it worked is if you left a review, you'd get 2 credits. And 2 credits was basically getting to work with 2 creators on the platform. It's about a $200 value. And I love product-led growth kind of like review plays just because like you have this product, you've invested money into, your technology. Like why not use it to help drive reviews? And I think the best way about it and the best point about it is like when you announce that and you share that out, most likely your most interested customers are going to be the ones that kind of pick that up. And so they're going to be the ones to, leave you reviews and things like that. And it's a great way to also identify like who some of those really interested customers are in the platform or even the solution itself. So that's kind of what we did. We focused a lot on G2 early on, and then we kind of switched to Capterra. So the way that we kind of did that is within the platform, it actually said like leave a review on G2. There was a link to get our G2 page. You go leave the review. Once it gets approved, you copy that link, paste it into the platform, and then you can claim your credits. And something that we did that was really, really great for us is like we wanted to prioritize one call to action first, which was like G2 reviews. And then we still wanted to be able to get Capterra reviews as well, just because like we had some competitors in the space that were ranking well through Capterra reviews. And just kind of having social proof in a couple of different places, right? You do like a Google search, like insert product name, reviews, like usually you're going to click through a few different links. Capterra is usually at the top as well. And so we actually flipped that. So we had both on there at the beginning. And then once we kind of like got the G2 reviews that we wanted, we put the Capterra review up at the top. So that way more people would kind of go to that one first. So even if they're not leaving 2 reviews, we're getting the one to the platform that we want to.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'm curious on the platform itself, like for you, Nick, and why G2 for Alyce, and I can give a little bit of like color on the Julie side too.
Yeah, it's just something where we've always so like we've paid to be, in G2, like we leverage it for a couple years now. And it's just always something. I mean, I understand there's other review sites that are out there and they try to pitch us often, but like G2 is actually a customer of ours as well. So it just kind of makes a lot of sense from both sides of it. And we've never really had issues with it. Like we've seen lots of success. We see a lot of inbounds that specifically come from G2 that are mentioning us. especially in like the how did you hear about us when people submit demo forms. It's like G2, saw you on G2 Crowd, like things like that. It was just worth it. And we're actually in the process right now of integrating Chili Piper, actually. And so we plan to take advantage of leveraging Chili Piper with that G2 piece that they announced like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know about that, if you want to go into that integration.
Yeah, so it's basically just being able to book directly through like G2. It's actually like really cool. And so we're kind of excited because we think that we see a lot of people, like we're at like 445 reviews right now on G2 or something like that. And so we get a lot of traffic to the page on a monthly piece. I think it's like 5,000 or so visitors per month or so to the G2 page, which isn't bad. And so like if they can just directly book versus submitting a demo request form, I bet you the conversion rate's going to be a lot higher. So I'm really excited to see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of themes that I heard from both of you are using the product as part of your review strategy to create a flywheel effect, right? And to connect connect your marketing like in a way that makes sense, right? It makes sense for you to use gifting as part of that incentive. You're a gifting platform, right? And then Jay, from the way that it's set up as a marketplace, having the credits to incentivize people to use the product more, but then also to leave a review, that makes a lot of sense. So using the product in your review strategy. And then as you're deciding on the platform, it's a lot about, some of it's partnerships and things, but part of it is deciding what you're going to do and doubling down on that. Like this is a theme throughout marketing, is pick a channel and then go deep in that channel, like before expanding out. At least that's how we thought about it over at Dually. Was there's a lot of different review sites. You could do Captira, you could do Trustpilot. There's so many, but we already had traction on G2. So it's like, let's double down here. And then like when you are promoting the badges, you have badges to promote, right? Because you didn't have like the scattered plan where you're getting average results everywhere. So I think that's something for people to think about, is whatever you do decide, just going all in on that. And that was one thing that worked pretty well with us, is the weeks or two leading up to the deadlines, we would have kind of all of the marketing team on the same page of, this is what we're doing right now. Like, this is what we're focusing on for the week. And when you have that, you're able to drive like significant growth. It was marketing and CS, which kind of brings me to the next question for everyone, is who should own this? So Nick, like I'll start with you, because customer marketing, right? So not all companies have a customer marketer. So just how have you seen it done in the past? Where do you think it should live?
Yeah, so I agree, and our team's actually still pretty small. We only have like 9 people on our marketing team, which may seem big to some people when you're like the only marketer, but it's still like pretty tiny for what we have. In the past, however, I have seen it roll up under like 2 places. So I've seen it roll up under content, which was interesting, and I've also seen it roll up under product marketing as well. And I think it really depends on like, how big the marketing team is, what everyone's kind of like big rocks. Is it actually a priority for you? Like when I was working in like IT, it was like the review sites were very different. And like, again, it was more so product marketing that was owning it in that case. But customer marketing, if you have that function, I think it makes a lot of sense, because you are the closest to the customer. You're the one that's kind of working with retention, building those champions and those advocates. So again, ideally, that's the number one spot, but I think you could roll it up onto the other 2 and still be okay.
It also depends on, the way I look at it too, is like, it depends on the business model that's in place. And so, if you have like, you're selling like more like enterprise tech and things like that, and you might have like an account manager or customer success manager, I think I would probably focus on integrating that process with them. I think marketing especially should be involved at some level at any stage of an organization, unless you're like really, really, really big. And hopefully by then you have tons and tons of reviews to share. But if you're more like early stage, I would probably look at it as marketing needs to be involved at some level, like especially if you're focused on like product-led growth and those kinds of things. Like marketing needs to also look at the retention piece, because like growth isn't just like, hey, cool, we got a customer, like that's great, like we collected the revenue, but like for early stage companies, like most of the revenue that you're generating shouldn't be coming from your initial sale. It should be from the sales that you continue to make with that customer as they get retained. And so having a marketer that can kind of work with that. And I think to Nick's point, product marketing is a great place to potentially start at that. If you have a customer marketing team, that's a really cool thing as well, I think, to get involved over there. But I would say, someone's got to own it. It would either be, market it, either just marketing or a combination of marketing plus some sort of account manager, customer success manager, or things like that. Anyone that really has that strong relationship or is also has the skill of building relationships. I mean, that's what it really is ultimately. Like, unless you're doing like something like really, really mass at scale, like at the beginning, you probably want to get reviews from your best customers. And so if you have those relationships in place, like find someone that's doing that, that's talking to those customers, and could probably ask them for that stuff.
Yeah, this is where like tight alignment like really comes in terms of if you have a system in place. Like, this is a very small thing, but on the marketing side, if they're controlling the email signature, right, and you have the banner that both says how well you're doing on something like G2, but you also have a place to easily leave a review. Like, now you're operationalizing it so that the CS team is able to capture that moment, like when customers are really happy, right? If someone responds or like, wow, like you just launched this new feature, like I'm super excited about it, then that's a good opportunity for them to say, hey, like, would you actually mind like writing a review about that? That'd be great. But then you already have like the link to that in the profile, because some of where this gets a little bit messy is when you don't have those things ready to go. Like, you don't have the link that directly to leaving a review, right? Or you don't have a link to leave a video. So I guess we'll kind of transition this a little bit into ways that either of you have thought about operationalizing reviews and incorporating different members of the team.
Yeah, I'll kick things off. So I think it's something where I feel like lots of people that I've talked to, marketers especially, have like always been like, oh, the G2 rankings are coming up. Totally forgot to go get reviews. Got to make sure to go get reviews. And like, you can see like huge spikes. I mean, we do it, and like all of our competitors do it, and like so many other companies do it. Ideally, I want to get to the point where it's more automated to a certain degree and it's on a monthly basis, because I think I can take what I already have, instead of getting NPS surveys from the last 90 days, just get it on the last 30 days and just make it a rolling 30-day window, and still have the automation of the email going out, the programs going out, and the gifts are already created. I guess that's the beauty of like our software, is like, I have these campaigns that are set up that can do based on trigger sends, things like that. So it's a lot easier versus just being like, all right, hey, I got to go buy gift cards now, or I got to go buy something else. But I think having it on like a 30-day window is ideal, just so you kind of spread it out through the quarter and you're not just banking everything for like that last like month before the deadline is.
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways that I think about operationalizing it. But there's a few ways that I think about that. The first, I think that's really important, is to also, one thing that I wish that I didn't do at Trend that I wish that I did do in any other like review process, and like we're working on getting that done right now, is capturing, not only just like letting the review platform capture who reviewed, but also like capturing it internally. So that way, if you want to potentially expand to a case study, or do some sort of video testimonial, or get someone to review on another site, or do it even on, if you build in reviews to your own website or things like that. I think that's a big part of making it more process oriented. That's something that you want to focus. That's something that I would focus in on. I didn't do it at Trend as much, but if I was redoing it, and we are in the process at Captivate of not redoing, but like generating more reviews. So like capture that information, so that way you can engage those people and continue to engage them down the line, and even thank them in the future, things like that. Couple of other things that I think are really important is also like connecting it back to, your internal like business metrics and business data. So like Nick talked about, pulling stuff from that NPS survey and reaching out to people like that. I think also, if you're like an earlier stage startup, like make sure you've got your product analytics really solid. So at least you can pull like, who are my most engaged users who keep on going back and using the product? And so you can potentially look at that and look at that list. And that's something you could probably download and reach out to, putting together templates on like reaching out and talking to these people, and what the ask is going to be, and those kinds of things. So if you really want to like systemize it like that way, I think those are a few things that are really important. And I would also say like, in terms of systemizing it, like G2 is like a really great place to like capture some of those reviews, but you can also continue to keep capturing them in other places. Like you can capture them on your website and things like that. So yeah, when I think about systemizing, I think about, having really good data, having good templates, and then, making sure that you're owning that channel. It's not just like, hey, we're going to hand it off to G2 and like that person, like they left a review and that's cool. But like, let's capture that on our own end to say like this person left this review and here's where they left it. So that way, if we want to go back to them and talk to them later on, we can and potentially expand on that story.
Nice. Okay, perfect. So I think we've talked a lot about like capturing reviews. I think we've like covered it pretty well for people in that you have ideas on how to incentivize, on like how to capture it, who's involved, right? Now, like what are we going to do with those reviews, right? Like how do you repurpose some of those reviews, or do you? So Jay, I think you have some thoughts on this just based on like some of the content and landing pages that you've done in the past. So I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a bunch of ways that you can use reviews, and I feel like reviews don't, and I'm guilty of this too. So like, I'm not just like trying to say like I've got this like exceptional plan and I'm just executing it perfectly over here. It's marketing is always sometimes imperfect at times, but like in an ideal world, you should be reusing your reviews everywhere, right? You can add them like on that same page where you have your demo form or pricing form or things like that. Sign up. You can share them out on social, right? If you're even doing these reviews really, really great. I think G2 lets you capture video reviews as well sometimes. So you could take that video, chop it up, share it out. If you're able to capture that review, and like I said, you're keeping it in your kind of like a CRM that you've set up for review process and things like that, reach out to that person, maybe ask them to jump on a quick 15-minute call, record that call. You can chop up that content, use it somewhere else. You can share out some of those stories on social. Where else can you? I mean, you can even, like I said, you can engage those people for like a bigger case study as well if you want to. There's like so many ways you can use reviews. Like even if you beta launch like a feature, you should probably capture some of those reviews, and you can share that when you go out to like a full product launch and things like that. So yeah, I like put it like, obviously you don't want to like overdo it too, like overkill, because like I think that also is like, hey, are you trying to like really like oversell me on the product that there's something wrong over here? But like, yeah, like use it on your website, use it on demo forms, build out bigger pieces of content from it, throw it into a blog if it's relevant too. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So Nick, like same question, just creative ways that you've used social proof at Alyce and past companies.
Yes, I think, ads are definitely a big piece of it. We run a lot of like paid ads. And so being able to have a huge chunk of these, and we mix up like our customer stories with like a lot of like the reviews that we're getting, those have been really successful. Our homepage, we're actually going through a slight like website refresh right now in bits and pieces. We're doing it all ourselves. And so like we're starting to kind of tweak some of those things and put them in different areas as well. The thing that I just did like last week was I took our last 200 reviews that happened on G2. And so I went through and I basically grouped them for like why they actually bought us. And so I put it like, to drive meetings, to stand out, ABM, demand gen events, or other, or customer, and then other. And so like I shared that with the sales team, the BDR team, and the AM and CS team. And so now they're utilizing it when they're having conversations with other people. Because I mean, when you leave a review, it's public, it's fair game. That's, you can utilize that in any of the ways that you want. And so we've actually had deals close from utilizing this method. And I try to like refresh it every once in a while with like the new ones that come in, but that has been a really great like repurposing of those reviews.
Yeah, let me dig into that a little bit. So just to make sure I understand it. So on the sales end, are they using it in the sense of understanding like what pain points to dig into and what things to say? Like typically we hear, that customers are coming to us because of A, B, and C. Is that why you're coming to us? So yeah, how are you guys utilizing it?
Yeah, so that's a big piece of it. And so like, I mean, we're not a complicated product to sell either. It's like, pretty straightforward, but still like people want to know, like, and I'll give you a perfect example. Like I jump on calls and people like, okay, great. I want to use gifting in my ABM motion. And it's like, all right, cool. What's your ABM strategy? And like no one actually knows, or it's like very scattered. And so to be able to pull from like, hey, these people are using it for ABM, like these are what we captured in the review that might be able to help you in like conjunction with all these other resources we have. It has been really, really good too. But even like just during like live conversations or follow-up emails that the sales team is sending out, they're pulling specific quotes in from reviews that were left just to give that additional social proof. And like, hey, like if you want to talk to so-and-so for a reference, like we can make that happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of gold in there. I like the reference piece too, of thinking about how you can leverage people who are champions of your brand, like to potentially be references on those sales calls. I hadn't thought about that. A couple ones that I'll drop, and as you guys were talking, I had like the luxury of just thinking through like how we're using them and how we have used them. So a couple things are homepage. As you're going through the homepage, you probably have multiple products, if not multiple products, multiple features, right? And so categorizing, as Nick, as you said, some of those reviews in a couple different ways, like one by here's the most painful thing that we solve for per person per review, right? So categorizing that way of like, what's the theme of this? And so that's more of the pain point. But then there's also like, they're usually talking about one or two features in there too. So also trying to like tag by feature of like, what feature is this talking to? And then when you go to refresh or create a new homepage, you're able to sort by the feature. And then that helps with each of those like product pages. So if you go to the Dually page right now, for instance, you go to any product page or you go to the home page, each like value prop per product like supports or talks about like that product, right? Like templates will talk about templates, notes talk about notes. And so we tried to like organize that so that they're supporting like that specific feature instead of just the product as a whole. So that was one way we found to operationalize things. And then the ads, like a few things that I'll add in here is, so there's videos, right? Like, and this is not necessarily reviews. This is just, if you have a customer marketing team, if you have someone doing case studies, you're probably getting on a Zoom call at some point, right? And so chopping up those Zoom calls for clips that you can use for social and for social ads is a big one. And then turning those into audiograms is another one. Images, like so quote images, right? Quote images, potentially turning that into a whole carousel if you wanted to do it by product or by feature, right? Of different people talking about that feature. So there's some like definitely some creative ways to use it in ads. And the last thing I'll add for more of the content side of things is when we'll do a landing page about a specific topic, same thing, like just pulling things out about the pain point. So if we're doing one specifically on standardizing sales, like sorting by G2 reviews, everything that's talking about process or repeatable or standardizing, you can look at those different keywords and you can pull those things out for that specific landing page. Same thing with the blogs. I think Jay, like you mentioned, dropping even quotes like in blogs. I think the average person might think like, how would you put like a customer quote in a blog? Like one way that I've seen, and I'm curious like how you've used them as well, is at the end of the blog, if it was something about follow-ups, like how to do good email follow-ups, for instance, I've used it one way this time, put a quote at the end about how Dually helped with a follow-up, which is kind of a niche use case in a lot of ways, but we happen to have it. And so it's less like, as you're going through blogs, think about what are some like supporting evidence you can give to like how you help with that use case. So Jay, like just anything else on the blog end of like how you can use social proof in content?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways. The first one, if you're talking about blog specifically, is like if you end up talking about your product or a feature of your product in that post, you can definitely use that over there and potentially like even inline or however you want to do it. Another cool way that I've seen it done before is also like kind of like a sidebar. Like if you ever seen those blogs where you've got like your one big column and it's like the blog, and then you've got like the little like small column and it's got maybe like a enter your email to sign up or stuff like that. Like that's another spot, like maybe even below that or above that you can use that quote. And if you're using like a really good website system, I mean, this is getting like super technical and stuff like that. Sometimes you can even match up quotes to different topics. So like, I have for us, like if we had a candidate, and we haven't done it yet, so probably it's on my long list of things to do. But if we have like a candidate blog, like talking specifically about tips for candidates, we might have like a candidate focus quote on the side running across there, just something that has a lot of value over there. And I like to use the ones that are really like aren't just like surface level quotes, like really kind of digging into something that feels and like generates like an emotional like connection to what that person said.
Yeah, I think like one thing that came to mind is there's kind of like two main purposes I think in social proof and in getting them from reviews is the actual social proof part of it, right? Like this product is great, like it's validated, right? But then there's also just all of the customer insights, like using it for customer research, which is a lot of like what Nick mentioned too, of like what are the use cases that we're using this for, right? Like, and how can I use that to just give a little bit more context to what this product is and what you can do with it. And you can see like there's like plenty of just content opportunities around that of like what type of content should I produce next. So like a good example I think from Dooley would be people mentioning different ways that they use pipeline, different views that they set up for themselves of like I use it to check my comp to like see how much money I'm going to make this month, right? Or I use it to see like what deals are most likely to close this month. I use it to see that at the team level. So like giving different ideas on how people use it, you may come up with things that you didn't even realize that your product could do, or you didn't even think about that as a template. And then, creating a blog or creating a piece of content that's like, here are the 20 different ways that you can use pipeline, right? And sourcing all of that from actual customers. So two different tracks, I think, of just leveraging it as a customer research tool and figuring out what those use cases are, figuring out why they buy, using that for sales and content. And then also just sort of the validation piece, right? Of like, I feel more confident in this as a product because so many other people use it. So to kind of like wrap things up here a little bit, Nick, like just any last learnings, like as you're going through it, because I know you're right in it, like you just a recent transition, right? So what are just like the big light bulb moments and learnings that you're having right now?
I would say I think leveraging someone, and this is gonna, I don't want to come off as like a tangent or anything, but I think like leveraging evangelism as like a role within these companies, but tying it back to like UGC content as like a whole. Because if you think about it, like, and it's a little bit easier when you're marketing to marketers, like I talk to most of these people like you guys every single day, and it's like, we get to know each other. And so when, I need to make an ask of something like this or whatever, or maybe we want like a video or something cool, like people are more willing to work with me because they see me creating content on LinkedIn every day and all these other platforms. And they're like, oh, cool. Like, you know what? Nick's like hopefully provided value for me. Like I want to reciprocate that and do something for him. So I think like leaning into that whole like evangelist, like advocacy piece of it, like whether it's like a role or like a person within the company, like a subject matter expert or whatever, I think leveraging that to continue to hit those like growth goals and those content goals around like UGC and other types of content is important.
Yeah, I like that a lot. If nothing else, it's like the give more than you ask, right? Jay, I'll let you get to it too. What learnings would you tell people just starting out on this?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that I've made recently, and we're trying to, and I actually encourage this to a lot of the other people that I talk to as well, is, there's a lot of great review sites out there, and I think it's great to get reviews on there, but I think it's also really great to own some of that review traffic as well. So one thing that we have on our website is we have a reviews page. And so, most of the times you think of like, I'm going to go to like G2 or Capterra or Trustpilot or something like that. I think it's important to also have your own reviews page because you get to control what that page looks like and what kind of information you want to provide and things like that. And there's a lot of creative ways, right? So like, G2, Capterra, they're all just going to list your reviews, and then, they might have like similar products or what the top features are and things like that. And some of that stuff is really useful, but some of the other stuff that's really cool to add in there, if you have those like landing pages for different use cases or product features, like you could potentially do more specific grouping and those kinds of things on that page. So that's something I'm really excited about. And I'm trying to really push my team. As soon as we get done with SaaStr planning and getting through SaaStr, I really want to push everyone at Captivate to provide more reviews so that way we can really utilize that page and own that space. So, prospect comes, they don't need to look a second place for reviews. They can just look through what we have on our website too.
Yeah, beautiful. Now to wrap things up, I would say it's always about the offer, right? And you might hear that and say it's about the incentive. But even broader than that, like Nick, what you touched on, and Jay, what you've touched on throughout as well, is if you're providing value both through your product and through the content that you're creating, and you're willing to talk to people one on one, you're giving advice, you have like that evangelism community play going, then this just gets a lot easier. Right, because it's not even so much an ask as it is a favor from a friend, right? And if you think about it that way, and it's just like hey, it's that time again. Like if you wouldn't mind topping in, like I'm just going to be way more likely to do that if I've been getting something from you, whether it's from like the LinkedIn feed or whether it's from your product or whether it's from like the gift. All of those things combine into making it just the obvious choice for me to just take 5 minutes to leave a review. All right. Well, that pretty much sums it up. So this is basically an excuse to just get you all together and chat again. So I'm glad we were able to make that happen. And Jay, good luck with everything on SaaStr. I'll probably listen back to this again to just get all the insights and think about how we can level up our own G2 and review playbook. Last thing, Jay, where can people find you?
Yeah, people can find me on LinkedIn. I'm a little heads down right now, trying to get all this SaaStr stuff done. Joy of a solo marketer. But yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter. I keep telling myself I'm going to get more active on there. I haven't done it yet, but I promise by the end of 2022, I will be back on there in full force.
Nice. It seems like Nick, like Jay might need like a little like Alyce like gift to get through this next month. It's seeming like, but Nick, speaking of like, where can people find you? How can they find out about Alyce? Nice. Look at that. Look at that evangelism community man in action. All right. See y'all later, and good luck on the reviews. Good luck on SaaStr.
Thanks for listening to Content Logistics. This episode was produced by Motion, a done-for-you B2B podcasting agency for busy marketers. If you liked what you heard, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.